I personally really, really like Chauncey Billups. He's been talks, first off, he was a great player. He's a great leader. He's a champion. He's a winner. Now, does that relate to coaching? No, absolutely not. But he's been talked about being a general manager for a basketball team. Now he's on a coaching staff, especially a really good coaching staff. I personally think that he's a great choice. He's young enough. He's been removed from the league as a player for, I don't know, a decade or so. It's just not really that long. He understands the game. He's intelligent. And he's a leader. He was a leader on the court. He'll be a leader off of the court. That's usually how it goes with coaching. And I just think that Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson need a guy that they can relate to, as Chris's point. Like, you can't get, this is why the Rick Carlisle thing probably won't work, is that he just might be a little too old school. Luka Doncic couldn't relate to Rick Carlisle. Like, let's, do you think Zion will then too? I mean, I go with Chauncey Billups. Do I think we get him? I give it a 50-50 shot. I really don't know. I don't know who's on Griffin's radar, to be honest with you, because he does a great job keeping everything hush hush. But my choice is Chauncey Billups.
Chris, you go ahead.
Up until the press conference, I really thought it was going to be someone in house, and I don't want to necessarily throw it out just based off the press conference, but and then listening to what David said, and then some of the things that came out, today, you get the feeling that Griffin, I mean, and actually it was in, I think, the article from yesterday, Griffin wants to be involved in rotations, and he wants to be involved in lineups, and like he wants to be hands-on beyond just setting the table. If you're going to do that, it's hard to bring in someone like Stan, who's been doing it longer than you, right? Who's been involved in coaching for a long time, who has led multiple teams to different forms of success. I mean, I could understand Stan being like, yeah, okay, you don't know shit about coaching, man. I got this. I've done this. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. So if that's true and that's what he wants to do, it's kind of hard to see him bringing in someone really established that has a resume already. So, I mean, that's where you start talking about the Charles Lees of the world. You start talking about Ime Udoka, someone like Teaspoon, who I thought would be wonderful, because I don't think the team is that far off, man. I don't know how which route they're gonna pick to get to where they need to, but they just need a little bit of seasoning and a little bit of managing and the right and here and there, and maybe hopefully fix up whatever friction was there in the locker room. And you're looking at a team that in their for the most part in their third year together, that could, I think, make a huge jump. My favorite outside of Jerry Stackhouse is your guy, Elliot. I really like Ime Udoka. I think that he crosses so many boxes. I mean, he comes from the best coaching family tree that we have in basketball out in San Antonio, who as an organization has been elite for 20 plus years now. He can relate. He's not too old. He's not too young. He's seen a bunch of different talents. He got a chance to learn from one of the greatest coaches ever. He was a role player, so he can relate to guys that are still gonna be trying to find their way. But he also played with superstars from Tim Duncan, and he was around Kawhi and Manu and Tony. He was on those championship teams. He's also a champion. There's a bunch of different things there, and he has experience when it comes to coaching, and has been around a bunch of different individuals there and through his time in San Antonio that made a difference. Now, I'm very curious as to why. I'm actually surprised that he hasn't been he hasn't gotten his crack yet in regards to being a head coach. I know he interviewed for, I think, Charlotte either the year before that. The last time that they had an opening, I remember him being a name that was thrown out there. His name always seems to be there, but he crosses a lot of boxes there. The smooth dude. When you hear him talk, and a lot of people have great things to say about him. Because I did research on him. I think when I thought the Pelicans were going to fire Alvin Gentry, and he's one of those dudes that a lot of people around the league have respected since he's gotten into coaching. So that would be my favorite pick. I think it all has to come down to what exactly does Griff want? How much micromanaging is he going to do? Because everybody just isn't going to be okay with that.
If he's really going to want to micromanage, it's not going to be Chauncey Billups. It's not going to be, let's see here. Well, obviously Jason Kidd, which we don't have to talk about at all. It's not, I don't think it would be Sam Cassell either. It's going to have to be somebody who hasn't been around the NBA as long as these people have. It's going to have to be a Charles Lee.
It'd be a teaspoon.
Sorry?
Teaspoon.
Yeah.
It'd be Teaspoon.
Teaspoon.
He could be able to micromanage Teaspoon.
Charles Lee, Jock Vaughn, probably not Jock Vaughn, but it's
not Jock. No.
It's caught between I want to hire somebody that's good for the job, but I want to micromanage them at the same time. How do those two things coincide? Because I don't think they don't. Micromanaging is not an effective leadership style. It's a very
it's never worked.
No, it has not.
It's never worked in any profession ever. The GM is the GM. The coach is the coach. Once the GM and the coach start, all bets are off.
Exactly.
I don't care. Like, there are no good examples. Like, now, I've hired you to coach this team. You go coach the team. Like, that's it.
Now, if he can somehow garner some self-awareness and put this together this season and just take a step back, if we're talking about a holistic coach, and to keep it a little more realistic, mine's probably going to be Chauncey Billups as well, Justin. Billups, like the thing, I think you said it, Justin, that the former play doesn't really have anything to do with coaching now. And I kind of disagree, because he comes in having had that experience, and players are going to respect him for that experience, right? He's an NBA
right away.
champion. He did so much in the league, top 20, 25 point guard of all time, probably. He did a lot in Denver as well as Detroit, and won a championship against Kobe and Shaq's Lakers. That's pretty damn impressive. And
yeah,
I don't know if you saw the clip.
Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know if you guys saw the clip today of, it was an interview on Dan Patrick in 2014 during the draft. I think when Ben Simmons and Ingram were selected. Was that 2016, 2015? I don't know. One of those 3 years, somewhere in there. And Billups said he wouldn't take Ben Simmons first. He'd take Brandon Ingram. Show him that clip and talk about Brandon Ingram being like, okay, this might be my guy, you know? Billups is right up there for me. He's been on that staff in LA with Ty Lue, with Kenny Atkinson. He's been around really awesome coaches probably his whole life. He's a guy that can relate to these younger players. He's been in the media too, just steps in and says, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. Let's do it together. That's the vibe that I get from Chauncey, and the fact that he's been there before adds a whole nother level to it. Now, in terms of getting a rising assistant, I also love the name Ime Udoka. I've listened to a few podcasts that he was a guest on, and it's one of those voices in the way he talks where you're like, this dude is a coach. You know, he's just very articulate, gets his point across, and super good dude. I don't know a whole lot about, the Charles Lee. Jock Vaughn doesn't really do it for me. Sure, he had a great bubble last year, but we've seen how much that really matters this year. And now in terms of continuity and making things work, I like Teaspoon. She just could be the perfect fit for this team because they need a coach that they'll run through walls for. That's what they need. They did not have that in Stan Van Gundy, not even close. And maybe Fred Vinson can be that too. And he's obviously well trusted on this team. I didn't think he had the personality to be a head coach. I watched a few videos and he speaks very succinctly. He's trusted by Brandon Ingram. That's a big thing. And he's trusted by Zion.
And Lonzo.
And Lonzo, exactly. Vincent could be my choice. The one thing that makes me nervous about Fred Vinson, though, is he's so freaking awesome in his position. I don't want to say, hey, you're really good at this, you must be good at XYZ, because that can be incredibly overwhelming. We had a fan ask me why I was nervous. That was, let's see here, who asked that question. It was Matt Gill, 12, pretty consistent listener of the show. But that's what makes me nervous. I don't want to take him out of something that he's phenomenal at and put him into another niche and say, well, you're probably good at this too. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I wanted to get back to your Chauncey Billups point before I go into this, is that I think that right off the bat, he will be well respected. And I was trying to say that. I just think coaching and playing are two different things. Like there's just night and day. So that's why I love Billups, because he'll be well respected. Brandon Ingram, Zion Williamson, like they'll like just attract to him. With the coaching side of things, I think relationships are everything. Like that is, I was talking about one of my buddies.
Especially now.
That is, you got to have a guy or a woman that those guys are going to go to war for, like every single night. Like that's just building a relationship. And I don't think Stan Van Gundy did a great job. And I don't know anything, right? But I don't necessarily think that Stan Van Gundy did a great job building that relationship with the Brandon Ingram or Zion Williamson. That's where I think that, Vincent has that already. He has that trust in Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, trust him, Zion Williamson, all those guys. Now, he's really good at his job, right? He's one of the best in the league. If you put him to a head coaching job, who knows what happens? I am interested to see, though, Teaspoon take over the summer league team this year. I think that's a really smart move. I think you got to keep her. I've heard really good things of Corey Brewer as well, who's not really talked about much on the coaching staff, but he's actually really well liked from what we've heard as well. And Teaspoon takes the cake. I think Vincent, Teaspoon, and Corey Brewer need to stay on that staff. But you have to build a really good staff too.
D-House.
So it's going to be interesting. There's so many options. What's that?
D-House, who's done a lot of work with Jackson Hayes.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Absolutely. I just think there's so many different options. I don't know. It could be anybody. It really can be. I don't know.
Now, in terms of Udoka, too, this is a point I wanted to make. He's on the staff with the Nets right now, and he might very well be an NBA champion by the end of this year. As last I checked, the Bucks were kind of kicking the Nets' ass. But that also happened last game, so not really sure how that's going to end. And he'll be coming from coaching Kevin Durant, who a lot of people like to comp Brandon Ingram to. So, he's around Steve Kerr, he's around Mike D'Antoni, and this team obviously needs help in terms of, offense right now, figuring that out, which is probably more about talent as opposed to coaching. But also Steve Nash is the coach I think the Nets needed because of how good of a communicator he is. And I think Udoka can learn a lot from that. And that's going to be really beneficial to a young team too.